Hey everyone, welcome to beamng. So I don't usually do mod reviews, but today is a special day because somebody, who you may recognize from my Discord, has created an incredibly cool swivel frame D-series that I need to cover. And he posted this on the Discord last week, and I totally missed it, but upon seeing it again and trying it out for myself, I knew I had to share it with you guys. So let's first describe what a swivel frame is by taking over some small obstacles. Oh, you can see it wiggling just a little bit there. But this is the perfect test for this because a swivel frame means that the bed and the cab are hinging in the center. And yes, that does mean that we get this sort of effect whenever we're driving on obstacles such as these. The gist of it though is that tires don't leave the ground when running over bumps like those, and that is the entire point of this setup. It was actually invented by a Canadian company, and I'm assuming it wasn't particularly successful, but trucks with it on actually do exist in real life, and they are incredibly cool and also incredibly rare. By the way, the links to all this stuff will be in the description, and also a link to the mod is in the description as well. I'd encourage you to give it a try. It has not got that many reviews, so try it, review it, and please spread the word of this thing. This is incredibly cool. So what it looks like underneath is this. Basically, there's a pivot point there, just like there would be on the real car, and you can see the drive shaft runs through it because, well, it's actually possible to do that. The exhaust is cut off right there. You can kind of see it by the transfer case, and there are chains here which theoretically are going to stop the bed from flipping over, which is also an incredibly cool little detail. Now, if we take a look at the regular D-Series, this is a 4x4 short cab, or short box D-Series, basically the same thing except without the pivoting frame. You can see that none of that stuff is here, and obviously it has a full exhaust. So a lot of work has gone into the underside of this mod to make this happen, and yeah, it's just all really cool to see that kind of detail. So if you read the little article that is in the description, you'll find that the reason that they did this was in order to make it so that your wheels stay, when you're going over bumps, they stay on the ground. And I guess that does have its own practical applications because, as you saw when we were running over the moguls here, the alternating moguls in particular, the wheels did not leave the ground. I wasn't going particularly fast, but on a regular 4x4, which we'll test real quick here, the wheels will probably bounce a little bit more than they do in this case. However, our load is being tossed side to side, which is not exactly ideal if it is indeed delicate. If we run a standard D-Series over the moguls, you'll see that, well, in this case, the articulation of this truck is enough that it's not leaving the ground, so maybe that's a bad example. But, yeah, some of the time, at least a little bit of the time, the wheels are leaving the ground and therefore becoming uncontrolled. So we're bouncing in a different way. It's kind of like a different level of control. Admittedly, it is a bit of a gimmick, especially off-road, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm sure there are specific applications where it'll work well, but for me, this is the kind of thing that I find cool. If we find this little ramp here, we can get full articulation and see what that looks like. I'm just going to back on into it nice and slow, and just catch the rear wheel on there, and up goes the bed. Oh yes, there we go. That should be basically full articulation, almost full. We're probably limited by the chains. Let's take a look. Yeah, you can see that chain there is tight, and well, it's relatively tight. Basically, that is the max articulation that you can get with this setup. But man, oh man, it's basically a dumping bed at this point to the side. The GridMap V2, which is where we are currently, is a great place to test this because there are just a ton of small bumps and things to run over and test with. And that's kind of why we're here. But we're gonna go check out some other areas too. I just figured, well, let's see what this thing can do here first. So how does something like this fare on, say, an actual off-road section? Well, not terribly. I mean, this is a 4x4 D series, so it has that inherent capability. I wouldn't say that this is particularly more capable than a regular D series. We can obviously test that as much as possible in this game, but it is cool. And again, I really do think that is the entire point. I do want to try, though, maybe pulling a trailer with a setup like this to see what it'll do. Let's see if we can get a hitch on it after we try and climb this hill. We do have a small advantage coming up some uneven slopes, just because, again, four-wheel drive plus the ability to keep every wheel on the ground at all times. So as long as you don't care too much about the load falling out, if there even is a load, then it's a pretty good setup. Okay, these are some very challenging blocks. I'm uncertain if I'm going to even be able to get up the most basic of them, but let's go ahead and switch it into low, lock the diffs, which is going to make this thing very, very funky, and let's try to climb up just kind of a basic staircase. Oh, no problem there, although maybe we could go for a little bit more height. Yeah, that didn't exactly end well, but I'm going to blame myself for that one. Okay, let's try out this obstacle course just to kind of see what the articulated bed will do on something that isn't so uniform as those moguls. I'm going to try to take this slowly, as difficult as that is for me, but kind of just over these more universal challenges. I think it'll be interesting, especially when things are uneven from side to side, because that's really where this thing shines. That's where the entire gimmick makes sense. As we go over some of these big bumps here, you can see that the bed is turning opposite of the cab, which again is letting us get full traction. As I say that, I spin the wheels. But again, it's letting us get reasonable traction in comparison to if everything was nice and stiff. Stiff is good in some situations, but unstiff in this case is better for us. Here again, bed is twisting. Normally the entire truck would be twisting and we might be losing a wheel into the air, but because of the articulation, obviously that is not happening. I probably should be in low gear coming up through some of these sections, but the truck is holding its own just fine. I believe this is a V8 configuration, but nothing too different than that. I have not changed it other than the base. There is also a long box preset version of this, although it's literally just the same thing, but a long box, we probably could customize it. Oh, that's a little bit rough into there. It turns out the bumper is not articulating. Oh man, this is not good. I mean, overall, running through that obstacle, I would say that it went pretty darn well. However, I'm going to attempt these now too, in the same condition that we left the previous one in. Now, as I understand it, the real-life versions of these things had the ability to lock the cab to the bed so that you wouldn't run into issues where your bed was doing things that you didn't want it to, and you could just keep things locked in place, which makes a lot of sense. So it wasn't a full-time swivel, it was only when you need it. If you were wondering what the swivel frame looks like, then there you go right there. By the way, you can remove the limiter chains, so that is not full articulation. Yes, please, I'm definitely going to try that. Okay, so here's our mildly modified version of the swivel frame truck. This is the long box edition, but it's the same thing again, just with a long box. And I've added a trailer hitch for some shenanigans. We're here in the Utah map, and again, the limiter chains are gone. But let's see what the truck can do, just out of curiosity around some of this campsite stuff here. Now that we have no limits, how far can we go? So if I just grab the truck with a node grabber, the articulation means that we can literally just flip the bed entirely around. So the limiting chains do matter quite a bit more than I thought they did. That's kind of cool though. Alright, so here's the swivel frame truck, currently unhinged from the clutches of the chains once again, and this time we're at a campground, so I figured it was appropriate to pull out a trailer as well. And by pull out, I mean literally pull a trailer out of a campground. But I'm very curious to see how the swivel frame reacts off-road when you have a bunch of weight behind it. I don't think it was designed for this in particular, unless your trailer is also articulating and swiveling and Man, there's a lot of physics going on in these calculations here, but there's a lot of stress on that center joint is basically what's going on, because now the joint is being used to pull as well as articulate, and that might be too much for it. We'll find out the hard way, hopefully. You know, it actually just drives kind of pleasantly. One thing I'm wondering is, because the bed is generally a little bit unstable, well, it's a little bit more stable depending on where we're at, but generally speaking, it is kind of flat, because anytime we turn, it's not upsetting the bed. But with that in mind, does it keep the trailer more level, or is it going to make the trailer more upset? I guess it depends on how I drive. Well, we're not here to sit around all day and drive slowly now, are we? Let's give this a little bit of beans and try to get to a location a little bit quicker. Running on this rough road, I mean, this is not, again, where the articulated frame really does anything. We could basically get the same result without it, so maybe it's the rocks for us. These caravans are extremely bouncy in stock form, my goodness. Okay, let's take the water crossing and see where this goes. And a little bit of a tight corner here, articulated bed articulating for us. And you can kind of see what I mean if you're looking closely. Whenever you turn, the chassis at the front turns, but the chassis at the back stays level, just because those turning forces are all up front. But, I mean, back at the highway, nothing really going on here. It's just going well. Oh, this isn't going to be good. Oh, yikes. It spun the bed and also destroyed the caravan. Well, I guess that was the point, but I didn't think it would end this way. My goodness. We have a little bit of control left. Oh man, I'm gonna have to ask if this joint here is unbreakable or not. I was kind of hoping to make the bed just fly off, but you know, there's kind of only one way to find out, isn't there? Okay, so one of the important features of all BeamNG things is, does it destroy well? And we're gonna find that out hopefully soon. Off the cliff we go. And slow motion, please. We've twisted already, which is already not a great sign, but a bit of a massive hit on the front. I don't see any real twisting other than, well, the obvious twisting in the back. I'm hopeful that we can like bend the joints and stuff, but maybe the mod isn't quite there yet. No worries if it isn't. I don't expect that with something that's already quite detailed, but you never know. That's why we test. Slow motion makes this thing look really darn good though, and unfortunately, it would appear that the bed is still attached. Guys, I regret to inform you that I don't think that it wants to come undone. I have been spinning it around for the last couple minutes, and I think, well, what have we achieved so far? You know, I guess that's undone. That's definitely close enough. So it's time for our final test, and as you may notice, there's a bar meter on the right-hand side. That's because this thing now has a 6.9 liter supercharged V8 engine, making a lot of power, way too much power, in fact, way too much. This is going to be interesting. These are drag rear radials as well, so theoretically, we should be able to rocket off the line. Now what I want to do here is blast off the line and see what happens to the bed in terms of torque, because torque is not necessarily delivered evenly across both rear wheels. Obviously we have a locked diff, that doesn't mean that's how it's going to go down. So if we just jet off here at full speed, what is this going to do? Now let's go into slow motion. I'm going to pop into first. And oh, she twisted, that's for darn sure. Second gear, it's hopping. Okay, let's see this in real time. Okay, the grip might have been a little bit too much for it because the bed appears to be thoroughly twisted, but that is quick. My goodness, this thing is not slow at all. 200 and... well, we're gonna hit 300 before we know it. Let's give it another go, fully in real time and with one-wheel drive, none of this lock diff nonsense. Let's do it, and boom! Oh, the whole cab twisted! Oh my goodness, the torque was too much. Hold on a minute, we have to do this again. Okay, let's watch the cab closely, and boom, that's first gear. Looks like we're hooking up on the right side, not the left, and off goes the cab. Completely around this time. Oh my goodness. I should probably adjust the final drive. That is a little bit more than broken at the moment. But it is absolutely awesome at the same time. This is what I like to see. You know, this is just way too much fun, and I want to thank Olivier for making this mod. You have brought much enjoyment to me and hopefully the people who have watched this video as well. And if you like this video, be sure to like it and subscribe for more stuff like it. You can see that the car is being absolutely destroyed in slow motion as we speak. But yeah, be sure to subscribe for more videos similar to this one, and I'm going to be making another, well, bigger video for next week. It should be fun. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Let's hop into real time. Yeah, it's about as bad as I had hoped. Oh my goodness. That was awesome.